I've been watching the Tom Bradby interviews, actually re-watching them because I saw them all when they came out. And I'm looking at them in more detail and I found them really, really enlightening. I noticed a pattern with Harry and Meghan in interviews that I'm going to share with you in this video. And the basic sort of theme of all their interviews is they set up the pain, lay the blame. They set up the pain that they're experiencing in some way, and then they always lay the blame with the media or at the feet of the royal family, usually by implication when it's the royal family. So I'm going to take you back to the one with Meghan in South Africa, which was at the culmination of their South Africa tour. And it's the one where she thanks Tom Bradby for asking her if she's okay. Now, she sets up the pain quite efficiently because she more or less points out that she's a new mum and that she's got a grueling work schedule and that she's tried to keep a lid on it with the stiff upper lip and, but she thinks that's rather damaging for what that can do to you internally where you don't show your feelings. And I'm going to get into how crazy all of that was in a moment, but there's one thing I noticed. I realised that I only ever watched screen grabs of that interview. I only watched what was out on YouTube or what the news showed. I didn't watch the whole documentary. And if you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to do so because it's very enlightening. If you watch the whole doco, you can actually see Meghan get ready for that interview. You can see her walk out onto the lawn and there's tech stuff happening and final, things, Tom's getting ready. And so she's standing there for a brief moment on her own. And I just kept my eyes focused on her intently and I noticed that she was getting into character. I am sure that she was getting into character. I've got a little bit of show business experience, not much, but I have been around actors getting into character. I've been around singers getting into character. So I know what it looks like. And I could see her building up her emotions under the surface, putting this brave layer of control over the top, and the little bite of the lip and the look down and the looking up at Tom, very Diana, and the big eyes in the interview. A very convincing performance. But I saw her get ready for it. I saw it. So the interview goes on and she sets up this pain that she's telling Tom. And there were two really confronting aspects to that. One was the fact, the setting. She's in South Africa. And she's talking about how hard she's finding it as a new mum and no one asking her if she's okay, the implication being the royal family didn't ask if she was okay. And it's like, are you not looking around where you are? It's so completely tone deaf. Abject poverty, mothers that struggle to feed their children. But another phrase that didn't gel was, it's not enough to survive, you've got to thrive, right? Well, actually, Meghan, the majority of the world's population doesn't have that option. They just need to survive. The majority of the world's population can't think about thriving. They have to think about surviving. And if I had been her advisor or publicist at that time and she had told me what she was going to do, I would say to her, look, the only way you're going to make this work is set up the pain as the new mum, but you have to insert this middle step where you acknowledge and show empathy for the fact that everyone else in the world pretty much has it harder, and then lay the blame. But she had to put in that middle step. I hope she's not watching, actually, because if she starts putting in that middle step now, she'll probably be more successful, and I would have been the cause of it, so I hope she's not watching. But she needed to show empathy. She needed to show she had some realistic knowledge of how the majority live. Crazy, absolutely spoilt, crazy. So it didn't go to plan. Social media ramped up with comments from real mums, and the media sort of took notice of that and pretty much weren't sympathetic. No one really was sympathetic. And I think that's why they went off to Canada and had to recover, because I think the first stage of the plan, setting the scene for how hardly hurt and done by they were, it didn't really work. Didn't really work. Okay, next interview with Tom Bradby. And I suspect that Harry and Meghan really go to a lot of trouble to establish a rapport and a warmth and a relationship with people that interview them. Because I've noticed that whenever they get a question they don't like and they sort of coldly, arrogantly rebuff it, because they switch to cold very quickly, the interviewer always looks a little bit shocked and even a little bit frightened, even seasoned interviewers. And I think with Tom Bradby, it wasn't so much that. I think he was weighing up, if I push any more on this particular point, particularly around the racist part of the interview where he was saying, well, you did imply that the royal family was racist. And Harry said, no, Meghan didn't. That was the media. And it was clearly such BS. And you could just see that Tom Bradby wanted to tell him that that was a load of rubbish, but he didn't. And I don't think it was fear, which I sensed in the Anderson Cooper and Oprah Winfrey interview. I think with him it was more, he's going to get up and walk out. If I push this anymore, he's going to chuck a tantrum, get up and walk out. And he'll do an interview with someone else. So he had to weigh him sitting there or walking out. I think that's what it was with that interview. So Tom Bradby takes him back through the book, and there were really clearly moving moments when he was talking about his mother's death and everything, and being shown the photographs at the time out of a file, and it was very, very moving. But then Harry made some really alarming allegations, and this is the thing, isn't it? They make really alarming allegations quite frequently, and yet when they're questioned on them at a later date, they gaslight everyone. They claim they never said it, or they claim that it was taken the wrong way, or it was taken out of context. This is not taken out of context. Harry said that his family was complicit with the media, complicit with leaks and briefings against him and his family with the media. And he also says in this interview that it had been going on for over a decade. Now, huge allegation and impossible to prove, but also impossible to deny. Because he said that whenever royal sources are named, that it was the palace leaking or briefing against them. But that's a load of rubbish. Royal sources could mean the gardener. Royal sources could mean someone who cleans up and got something out of a rubbish bin. Royal sources could be a company or a business where the palace ordered something off them and they happened to overhear a phone call in the background. I mean, a journalist even said that Camilla told something to a trusted friend. The trusted friend related to her husband. The husband happened to play squash with someone that was the brother-in-law of someone that worked in a newspaper. I mean, there's many degrees of separation. And the other sort of hypocritical thing about that accusation is, when they first moved to Montecito, we got bombarded with PR from across the pond. I mean, everyone got bombarded with feel-good stories about Meghan and Archie and ringing the Queen and Zoom calling, which later turned out to be actually false, and Harry, keeping in contact and making his granny laugh, and all these sorts of... They had sources briefing and leaking and often saying really unflattering things about the royal family. So, I felt like we were barraged more the other way. But Harry's defence of why all these doubling down of daily attacks against them when they moved to Montecito was so unfair was that he said that they were completely quiet in 2020. They didn't say anything. So all these attacks were unwarranted. So I went looking to see just how quiet they were in 2020. So I had to go and do a bit of a timeline, and I've written down some things, but honestly, there's way more out there. If you want to do your own research, they were not quiet in 2020. They weren't. So I'll give you some quick examples. In April 2020, they told everyone about Archewell. They didn't launch it, but they just told everyone about the name. But also in April 2020, so that in their first month of being over there, they made a bombshell statement that they would no longer be cooperating with the British media. Even not just British tabloids, the media on the royal rota. Now, if you're wanting to cool the temperature and create some space for your family and build a new life, would you do that? Doesn't it smack of wanting to stay in the public eye and create drama? It does. Okay, July 2020, they bought their house and Omid Scobie got to tell us how big their mortgage was. August 2020, Vanity Fair wrote a very detailed puff piece on the house purchase, and they quoted very friendly sources saying lovely things all about them and the house and how they loved it, and cute little bits about playground for Archie and everything. So yeah, they were talking to the media through sources, Harry, which you accuse everybody else of doing. 19th of August, Meghan interviewed Emily Ramshaw, CEO of the 19th, and that received a lot of attention at the time. In September, they repaid the money for the refurbishment of Frogmore, and that generated a lot of positive press because it was done by Media Release. October 2020, they released a podcast recorded with teenagers to mark World Health Day. And also in October, they launched Archewell officially, glossy website, whole bit. Now, November, they did a rather embarrassing Remembrance Day photo op in a cemetery in LA, and they appeared to be, it was so contrived and staged, and we were sort of prepared prior, being told that Harry had wanted to lay a wreath, but no one in the mean royal family would lay a wreath for him over in the UK. Okay, Harry. So it turned out to be a very heartfelt, solitary, solemn photo op. Also in November, and this is a little delicate, Meghan released the Losses We Share article in the New York Times. There will be comments there are people saying she wasn't even pregnant, how could she miscarry, and all those sorts of rumour and intrigue and drama around the children. And I get it. But I am going from the point of view of what is published, and that is not even the main point of this story. The main point of the story I want you to understand is the setting up of the pain with the miscarriage, and then the laying of the blame, which was the court case, where her father's letter was published and she's suing, and the strain of the court case. And then also you've got the subtitle for the article, and it's the subtitle I want to draw your attention to. Perhaps the path to healing begins with 3 simple words. Are you okay? Now, that subtitle for the article I found very manipulative and very clever, because in doing that, she'd already set up the blame that the strain of the court case, and Harry refers to that causing the miscarriage in the documentary. But then she takes us back to a past wrong where the royal family didn't ask if she was okay, by implication. Again, she didn't say it directly. So she's getting a 2-for-1 shot, isn't she? She's getting the blame. So it's a 2-for-1 shot. And I know she's sort of invigorated the TIG again and she's starting all that up again. But at that stage, she was an ex-blogger and an ex-content creator. And I think she was recycling content. I think she thought, it didn't really work the first time. Let's have another crack at this. That was such a good line. And so she's recycling content. So I found that a little manipulative. And it's a pity because the actual piece, whether you believe the piece or not, but the actual piece itself was very powerful and dramatic, and it was heart-wrenching. So the piece was well written, but that subtitle, no, I found that a little manipulative. Okay, so let me know what you think about the Tom Bradby interview. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. Do you think he went far enough in the interview? Do you think, like I do, that he went as far as he could without Harry actually getting up to walk out? Do you suspect, like I do, that they love bomb interviewers prior? They build a relationship, a very warm relationship, and then when they get arrogant and haughty, that it takes them by surprise when they get that sudden coldness. One more thing I meant to mention about the Tom Bradby interview was I detected a flash of regret across Tom Bradby's face. When Harry said denying the racism claim, I just felt like there was a flash across Tom Bradby's face, like, I've backed the wrong horse. I saw it. You have a look at it again and see what you think. Can't wait to hear what you have to say. I just love reading your comments and thank you so much for them. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I can't wait to see you again. Bye.